Come on, everybody. Welcome back to the Game Time Podcast. We finally got a name for the podcast. It's going to be a great show here today. Happy Easter to everyone. We are recording this on Easter Sunday, so happy Easter to everyone. This video won't go out on Easter, but I want to give a happy Easter to everyone that's watching. We've got NBA talk today, and we've got NFL draft. We're really going to stick to those two things for this week. I'll probably split that up into multiple parts throughout the week until we get back to recording that next Sunday. But of course, I've got the guys with me today, Daryl and Ramon. Fellas, we're about to get into it. NBA playoff talk. Ramon, obviously you like to bounce off of me and Daryl, but Daryl, I'm gonna let you start us off.
Hey, really happy to get the show on for Easter. Been a little bit, so I'm pretty excited about that. Also, I'm excited about this NBA playoff, formation that we've got going on here. So we'll hit at the games that I looked at yesterday. First and foremost was Pacers and Bucks. One of the things I want to talk about when it came to the Pacers and Bucks, first and foremost, they don't like each other. It's okay to not like each other. It's okay to have contested communication. But let's be realistic. This isn't the 70s, 80s, and 90s where guys really are going to fight. So all that woofing and talking and stuff like that, it's just talk. So we got to keep that in mind when we're saying this guy, punked this guy. That doesn't happen in today's NBA. So I'll start with saying this. Milwaukee has the best player in the series. Giannis, is unguardable for anybody. The Pacers got on the team for an extended period. That's why they threw everybody at him at the kitchen sink. What I'll say about Giannis is this: he may have scored almost 40 points, but with that said, I think he missed 6 or 7 free throws yesterday, and I wouldn't be surprised come Tuesday night if he doesn't hit those free throws early or hit those shots early. He may be going to the free throw line an awful lot, and how dare I say, hack a Shaq, because this is important. And if he scores like he scored yesterday, I don't think the Bucks win 2 games. The other team members have to score. He can't score 40, 45, 50 and expect it. Hey, I'm sorry I'm boring you, man. I really
No. You're all good. You're all good.
Already. So I would just say this. Him being in that high 20s, low 30 range is probably the sweet spot for Milwaukee and a winning combination. But, I don't know that's for sure, but we'll see what happens on Tuesday. And again, if the Pacers go up 2-0, Milwaukee can't beat them 4 out of 5.
Okay.
I think everybody would agree with that. Thoughts on that, Isaiah? What do are we going?
No, you're good. I'll give my thoughts on a separate series here in a moment. Okay. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I didn't get to watch the game yesterday. I had work yesterday, but I was watching the stats. I was keeping up with the stats a little bit, and I watched some highlights. I think the biggest thing, and it seemed like what everybody was talking about yesterday, was Andrew Nembhard. And you got to give credit to this Pacers team. I mean, Halliburton, 12 assists, and then you had multiple guys in double digits. You had Mathurin in double digits, McConnell with 11, Nembhard with 17, Siakam with 25, Turner with 19. That's this team's second formula. If Halliburton isn't scoring, he's got to distribute, and everybody else has to score if he's not going to score. And it worked out in the Pacers' favor. I mean, they only had 5 turnovers. That's also very impressive when you look at the stats from that standpoint. But there is going to come a time in this series where Halliburton's going to have to score. And I think a part of me coming into this game kind of had a thought like, okay, this is Halliburton probably won't score much. And that was kind of a thought I had for this first game. I did think the game was going to be closer, because I definitely thought with the way Giannis was ramping up at the end of the regular season, I was like, he really looks good. This game 1 may be closer than I thought, but I got to give credit to the Pacers. They did a great job in this game. And I think another thing that also may have played a factor is the crowds, right? There's been a lot of talk on Twitter about ticket sales and how the casual audience are the ones in the seats. I don't think that's the case for the Pacers. Tickets have always been reasonable, and I think the real hardcore fans are in the building. Where you look at a game in LA or you look at a game in Golden State, the fans aren't wearing those t-shirts that the teams are putting out there for them to wear. If you look at the Gainbridge last night, covered in yellow. So a big shout out to the fans as well. I think they played a factor bringing that game one energy as well.
Coach? I think, I'm going to put my coach's hat on real quick. So a couple interesting things have been said by both my colleagues. All right. That's the best player on the court. When he's on the court, he's the best player, and it's not close.
Mm-hmm.
However, the Pacers have the best team. And the best team traditionally is going to beat the best player because player is singular. And that's the biggest problem. He doesn't have that type of help. We talk about how he needs to score. In a game, in a series like this, you don't really need to score because they only got one gun. They don't have multiple guns. So as long as he's doing his job, not turning over the ball, distributing the ball, controlling the tempo, controlling the team, and the other guys are scoring, he doesn't have to score big numbers against this particular team because I don't think they have enough firepower. Now, we touched base on the fact that the Pacers had 5 turnovers. Man, that's incredible. When you have 5 turnovers, you only have, 2 turnovers off the bench, and your starters only have 3 turnovers? That's incredible. But what's more incredible, or in addition to, they had 28 assists as a team. So one person doesn't have to score a bunch. You got 28 assists, you're moving the ball, you're finding an open man, and he's making shots. All right, so that's going to be the downfall for the Bucks. If the Pacers continue to play like a team, get everybody involved, keep the turnovers down, that assist level stays high, I don't care if Giannis hit 50. They're probably going to lose this series because the Pacers are just a better team. Now, when they're playing defense, like they're playing defense and holding teams under 100, maximizing their assists, they're every possession counts because they're not turning the ball over. Man, it's just a recipe for destruction for Milwaukee, man. So I feel like your boy Shannon, but I'm not gonna go into all the jokes, but Pacers in 5.
Hey,
Pacers in 5.
To your point, Ramon.
Bucks, Ducks, Milwaukee sucks.
Yeah, Pacers in 5. There you go. There you go.
I was gonna piggyback on what you said. You said scoring 50. If he scores, 50 above 40, that's not good for Milwaukee. So that means other guys aren't getting involved. And one of the things I said at halftime yesterday, I said, "Where's Chris Middleton when you need him?" Oh, he's in DC, and you got Goose Egg Kuzma in the trade for him. And I think that's the other thing too. Chris Middleton is at home right now thinking, I hung 30 on these guys less than a year ago, and now I'm sitting at home watching this. So, yeah.
22 minutes, 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, a negative 24 plus minus. Kyle, Cardio, Kuzma.
Good deal. I like that. Hey, and just, as we pivot on to the other games, I want to hit a little. I know we probably won't hit a lot on it, but I want to talk about that, the Rockets, and I said the Rockets, I'm sorry, the Clippers and the Nuggets yesterday. Nuggets did pull it out yesterday, but I'll tell you this, man, Clippers controlled that game for the first 3.5 quarters. And I just believe the crowd and Jokic and the big shots by Westbrook at the end were strong for them. But I tell you what, I still say Clippers going to win this series. And it wouldn't shock me if they do a 5-game sweep at this point going forward. If you looked at that, and when I say 5-game sweep, meaning 4-1. When I looked at that game yesterday, the Nuggets didn't have many answers at all. They hit some good big shots in the third quarter. Crowd got involved in everything, and they eked out a win. I just don't see them doing that on a nightly basis against the Clippers, is my personal thought.
Here's what I think about that. And this is a tricky series to me. Because just as we talked about the Pacers Milwaukee series, the Denver is the total opposite of the Bucks. I think Joker is actually better than Giannis. That's just my personal opinion.
No,
I like Giannis's game, looking at it better, but I think if I had to pick a person between the two, it's going to be Joker 10 out of 10 times. All right, so he's going to get you those points, 29 points. He's going to get you, rebounds, 9 boards, 12 assists. He's putting stat. He fill up the stats. He's not missing free throws like the guy in Milwaukee. He went 4 for 6. But in conjunction too, his supporting cast had 25 and 21 points and 15 off the bench. All right, he got help. So if he continues to do that and he gets some help, he's got a fighter's chance all the time. Yeah. Where the other guy in Milwaukee, I don't think he has a chance because he ain't got nobody helping him.
Yeah,
he on his own. Denver's got some guys that can help out. They can fill in the gaps when Joker's not completely dominant, and I don't even know what completely dominant is for him anymore with the way he fills up these stat lines. So I think this is a tricky one. I want to say that the Clippers have a great chance of winning this, but they still the Clippers, man.
I think the biggest thing, and I said it, I said it when I was talking to somebody else about this series in particular, the Clippers have real deal depth. There's not a player on this roster that you don't know that they can score, right? I mean, other than Ben Simmons, but you look at the rest of this roster, they've got guys that play their role. Chris Dunn has played his role well for this team this year. Norman Powell has been getting most improved player considerations, all this. We've talked about Norman Powell. The media's been talking about Norman Powell. Nicholas Batum, he's been a contributor on this team for years. They got Bogdanovich at the trade deadline. He didn't score in this game, but that's not going to be something that happens in this series going forward, right? He's going to contribute at some point in this series. I mean, and then you've got Derek Jones Jr. as well. This team has a lot of depth. And then not only that, you've got Harden, who's putting up 32 and 11. Then by 11, I mean 11 assists. He also had 6 rebounds. Zubac is playing like, I don't even know. I mean, Zubac, you could say he's maybe a top 6 center right now with the way he's been playing, 21 and 13. And then Kawhi Leonard with 22 and 6. Harden's been great in this stretch of games in the last couple weeks of the season. This Clipper team has a lot of depth, and Denver has some depth as well, but you could definitely say this is the weakest Denver team since the championship. If you look at last year's team and the team before that, well, I guess just last year, but this is the weakest Denver team we have seen up until this point. Right now, I'm saying Clippers in 7. I think this gets to a 7-game series, and I think Ramon made a great point. Jokic is, in my opinion, probably the best player in the league still to this point, and then Giannis can be second, third, wherever you want to put him. I don't really have a ranking, but I do know Jokic is probably number 1, and for that, and for the way this Nuggets team is, and Jamal Murray usually always ramps up during the playoffs, I think the Nuggets are going to stay in it throughout the whole way. I think it will be a 7-game series, and I think the Clippers will get it done in Denver.
That's a fair.
The Clippers could have,
but they won't win in the second round. It's a Clippers curse, though.
The Clippers could have Kawhi, James Harden, Jesus Christ, God Almighty, and Allah, and they'll figure out a way to lose it, man. I just don't trust the Clippers, man.
And that's fair.
That last call, I'm telling you. I'm with you there. Clippers have shown a propensity to lose when they shouldn't lose, right? But something about this team just tells me it's a little bit different. I fundamentally disagree that it'll be a 7-game series. I just think based off of what I saw yesterday and how the Clippers moved the ball and they had so many guys that weren't afraid to take a shot. So it's going to be interesting, right? Because, you got Murray and you've got the Joker who are not afraid to take big shots. Obviously, we know that. But I'm interested to see how as a new coach, as he kind of continues to acclimate himself to this team and what type of wrinkles he may create next game, which will be Tuesday. So we'll see what happens there too.
Hey, Cott, you remember when Ohio State had John Cooper as the head coach, and we would always be number 1 ranked in the nation to the last game, and we blow it? It's the Los Angeles John Coopers.
It's funny you say that. I have another conversation with somebody. That'll be another segment, but that's a good conversation. The John Cooper conversation that haunts a lot of Ohio State fans still to this day.
I'm not gonna talk to you about it, man. It will end our friendship, man.
You follow me? It's a good deal. So pivoting over back to the East.
To the East. Okay. I was about to say, I was like, go ahead and get your stones out. And I'm gonna go ahead and accept it right now.
No.
But okay, we can start with Pistons and Nets.
I just want to pivot back and forth, right?
Okay.
So New York, Detroit. One of the things I saw, during the regular season was how Detroit wasn't afraid of New York, right? They went in there, they played bully ball, they took New York out, and they did that in the first three quarters yesterday as well, right? New York had that 21-0 run in the fourth quarter that propelled them from I think an 8-point deficit to a 16-point lead, and I think that was pretty much it. But I tell you this about Detroit: their younger team didn't have a lot of deep playoff experience. They're going to get it, right? They're going to get it here, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is a long series. I don't know that Detroit will really win, but I'd like them to win because I'm not a New York fan. But I just don't know if the point guard, Cade Cunningham, and those younger guys have it in them right now to play and beat a veteran team that went through it last year, right? 2 7-game series last year, back to back, was Philly and then the Pacers, right? They lost to the Pacers. So what I would say is this: it's closer than many would have thought, right? But it wouldn't surprise me, for me personally, that it would be a 6 or 7-game series, and I wouldn't be shocked about 7 because Detroit's not going to back down. They're going to continue to fight and they're going to continue to push. Their only issue for me is around the rim. Yeah, they got thick bodies, but they don't have long bodies. I think that's going to be an issue for them trying to defend Cat on a consistent basis, as he really ramped it up in third quarter yesterday into the fourth quarter. I don't know how many points he had in the third and fourth quarter, but I know I saw him hit big shot after big shot, and that made a difference in that game yesterday.
I think for me, when I look at this series and I'm looking at the stats from yesterday, Malik Beasley had 20, Tobias Harris had 25, Tim Hardaway Jr. had 19. And I mean that Cade had 21, but I'm just when you look at those three guys right there, I mean, you had all those three guys basically put up 20. And that's not going to happen every night. And then when you look on the side of New York, you had Cat with 23, OG with 23, Brunson with 30. Like their big three came to play. And I think a big thing, and it kind of reminds me of last year with Indiana without having Mather, and this Detroit team doesn't have Jaden Ivey. And I wonder, how much would Jaden Ivey be much of an impact? Obviously, it'd be his first playoff series. So maybe, the jitters may get there, but I wonder how much he would be a contributor. I'm curious to see how consistent Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, and Tim Hardaway Jr. are going to be, right? Because another person that this Detroit team's going to need to rely on is Jalen Duren. He had 7 points and 6 rebounds. That's not going to cut it if you're going to play, especially this New York team. I want to see more from Jalen Duren. I really like Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren's one of a player that I've always liked. I loved when Detroit took him. I got to see more from Jalen Duren in this playoff series, especially when you're going to get up against Karl-Anthony Towns, because Towns is not going to stay in the paint. He's going to go around the perimeter. He's going to take some threes. He moves around offensively. So I'm curious to see how Duren will do, but it's going to come down to Harris, Beasley, and Hardaway Jr. Can they stay consistent enough while Cade's putting up 25? Can somebody else give him 15 or 20 as well to beat New York? Because New York's big three is going to show up along with some other role players.
Hey, you guys said it all, man. I just put it in a nutshell. I look at the New York Knicks and their lineup and their roster, and I trust those guys in this situation. I do not trust Detroit.
Yep.
Now, I think if this is played 3 years from now, it may be a different ball game. But as of today, I don't trust the Detroit lineup to continue to produce like this at this moment. And that's just the biggest thing. I as much as I'm not a Cat fan, I trust Cat to produce somewhat. Maybe not superstar, but he ain't got to be superstar. Brunson, I trust him to be him.
Yep.
Bridges, I don't think he'll have another 8-point game, 2 rebound, 2 assist game. I think he'll be better. And OG, the name just says itself, OG. You know what I'm saying? I trust him to be him on both sides of the court. So when it all said and done and it comes down to it, I think that those guys are more advanced in their maturation process than the other guys are. And I think over a 4 to 6 game series we're going to see more and more of it.
So we've got. I was just going to say we got about 8 minutes left in this segment. Daryl, if you want to finish it up, we'll
you're okay.
No, I was just going to say we can do another segment where we finish off with Timberwolves and Lakers, and then we can look into the other series that we have going on that are actually going on right now, but we'll talk about them as well.
Well, what I was going to say was, I would like to see how many points those three have for Detroit in the first 30 minutes of the game. I would be willing to bet you over 80% of those points were scored in the first 30 minutes of that game when Detroit seemingly had a decent 5 to 9 point back and forth lead for the first 2.5 quarters, right? So I would say this, to your point, Ramon, can they continue to do it? They're not babies. Those three guys you named, they're not rookies. Tobias Harris has been around. You're talking about Hardaway Jr. It's been around. So they're not rookies, but it's going to see what happens come next game on Tuesday night on how they respond to me, a gut-wrenching loss because you controlled the game for 30 minutes. And then
in New York as well.
All of a sudden the wheels fell off. So yeah,
they're definitely not rookies, but they've been in those positions of leadership of what they need to do. Tobias has been what, a third option most of his life.
Yeah. Second in Orlando, but they weren't doing much then, right? So then he went to Philly. Yeah, good point.
They were third and fourth options. Now they got to step up and be second options and primary scorers or ball handlers or defenders, and they got to put it on their back. It's different when you can hide, when you can punch and then jump behind big brother.
Yep.
But now when you got to stand toe to toe and you do all the punching, how you gonna react when you cool when you hitting? How you gonna react when you get hit?
We didn't bring him up because he was quiet this game, but Ausar Thompson, he had 10.6 rebounds. So I'm gonna keep my eye on Ausar Thompson in this series as well. We'll see what he can contribute for Detroit in this series, but this one's gonna be interesting. I've been back and forth. I'm like, maybe Detroit can win this, but I'm gonna kind of just play it safe. I'm gonna go at New York in probably 6.
Yeah, I would say in that neighborhood, to your point. But I'll say this, man, you're only an injury away. And you saw the point guard last night in the beginning of that third quarter, Brunson come down awkwardly on his foot and he started limping. I think it was the end of the second quarter. But he came back in. No, that was Ant that came out. But he came back in and he was okay. He changed his shoes. And I'm talking about Brunson. He changed his shoes and he came back in. But if that ankle isn't right and he I don't like to put percentages on guys being healthy or not, but if he's in that 70-ish, 75% range, that can sway the balance of power towards Detroit because he won't be such, that hippity hop, all around the court deal, right? So if he's more stationary, that's gonna benefit the likes of Tim Hardaway and guys like that. They're out there chasing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. When we come back, we're going to talk about Lakers and Timberwolves, and then we are also going to look at the other series going on, today, but the other series going on in the league. I got some thoughts on Orlando and Boston. I'm really interested what you guys think about that series as well. So we'll be back in just a minute for some more NBA playoff talk. Talked about the first 3 series, but there's one series out of that Saturday slate we have not discussed yet, and I'm ready for the Stones. I'm definitely going to get attacked here in this segment. We've got Lakers versus Timberwolves. I guess I'll start this one out, right? As the Lakers fan. So I got to watch this match. I had this on my computer and I had WrestleMania up on the TV. That's what I was watching both of those yesterday. WrestleMania was a good show. To give a little shout out, since I don't know if we're doing a wraparound segment today, there's my little shout out to pro wrestling. But the other show that I watched, I did not enjoy the show once we got to the third quarter. This was a good first half for the Lakers. They played really well in that first half, and then we got to the second half and the Timberwolves did what the Timberwolves do. Edwards had a really good game, and Daryl, you brought it up. I mean, they went after Luka. They put some pressure on Luka, and I mean, Luka still had 37, but like you said, he probably gave up about 20 points. And then I also got to give some flack to LeBron as well. He did not play well in this game at all. I don't remember when it was, but I think he had like 2 points, and he got that first point in like the second quarter. We can't have that in the first. We can't have that in game one of the playoffs. I'm not gonna panic yet. I'm not gonna hit the panic button yet because it's game one. It's a feel out game. I'm not gonna panic quite yet. It definitely sucks, especially when you were up in this game by a good amount. But I think the other big thing that goes along with this team is there was no real contribution from the bench. Hachimura had 9, Vanderbilt had 2, Dorian Finney-Smith had 3, Connect had 5. There was no production from the bench. Where usually, the big three did fine. Reeves had 16, LeBron had a really inefficient 19, and then Luka had 37. But you had nobody from the bench even get close to 10 other than Rui Hachimura. I don't think that'll happen again. I think we'll see some contribution from the bench. This was just a bad night out from the Lakers offensively.
Hey, you made some good points there. So one of the things that I looked at and I saw was the fact that Minnesota got pretty much what they wanted when they wanted. To me, that was even in the first half, right? There wasn't a lot of resistance from the Lakers ensuring that Ant doesn't hurt you, right? Conley doesn't hit the big shot. So my concern for the Lakers, and I said it to you before, is they look great, during the honeymoon session and Luka coming over and everybody's hugging and kissing. But let's be frank here. Last year in the NBA Finals, Luka was the weak link on the defensive end. He was emotionally weak, and that put them in a situation, them meaning Dallas, in a difficult situation. They looked him up, they hunted him. And as I said, a few weeks ago, I said, they're going to hunt him in the playoffs, whoever it is. I said, because he doesn't like that. He doesn't like exerting energy on defense. And he showed that last night. But what I also saw last night was number 15 for the Lakers. He's a guy who I thought would have played better on defense. He looked a little shook last night. Maybe first game jitters of NBA playoffs at home, could be. I'll give him the benefit, right? But if the same thing or similar happens the next game, which will be Tuesday night, when they're able to hunt Luka on defense, right, and then neutralize LeBron James and ensure that the other guys try and beat you, Lakers may be in trouble. You got one of the greats of all time in Lakerland, so you don't want to count them out till they're out. However, Minnesota's a young, fiery team, and it seems as though Randall had something to prove last night. And I know you didn't mention Randall in your piece, but Randall showed a lot of heart and grit, and maybe he's still burning up a little bit because LeBron traded him a few years back for Anthony Davis. So maybe there's something there that goes way back. There's something to think about as well, in my opinion. So that's my thought on that. Ramon?
Man, I'm not talking about them. No, I'm joking. Here we go. First of all, they should have played Bronny more. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
Hey, this ain't the troll show. This is a real show.
I'm gonna stop. Time out. My bad. Flag.
Hey, we're gonna edit that out. We're gonna edit.
That's a tag.
Keep that in.
Nah, I'll keep it in. I'll keep it in.
Here we go. What concerned me is that you got 9 turnovers by the big two.
Yep.
And you only got 4 assists by the big two. So either Minnesota's doing a great job defensively, or those two don't trust the rest of them guys in this situation.
Ooh, low blow. I didn't think of that one, and I didn't put my numbers on that. Good one on that one.
So I'm not sure what it is, but that scares me because you got 2 guys who are assist machines and can score at the same time. So it's not like they can't do it. It's not like they can't go 30-10, 28-7. But for some reason, you got 3 and 1 as your assists. And you got 5 and 4 as your turnovers. That's scary to me.
No, it's a bad night out. It was a bad night.
But you're a top five. You're a top five basketball players. Those two are, and then you look at your starting lineup. You got one guy that had 9 field goal attempts, one that had 2, and one that had 13, who are not named James or Luka. So that means you ain't pass the ball because they ain't shoot the ball. So either they're not getting open, you don't trust them, the offense is bad, or the defense is extremely good. But something's wrong because the ball they're not even getting attempts. Then you had 3 field goals made by one and 5 made by another starter. So your starters not named Luka and LeBron only made 8 buckets.
That's 2 a quarter, man. That's 2 a quarter.
That's bad. Then your bench only made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buckets. So either they scared, and it was at home, so you can't be scared, right? Or I don't trust you, so you're not going to get the attempts. Or the defense is really good. That's hard for me to believe, to say it was a bad night out when you got arguably, even if you move LeBron down, say he's like top 10, you got 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA on the same team, and you get that type of production in that way. Now, if you had a bunch of missed shots by a bunch of cats not named LeBron and Luka, then I'd be like, all right, bad night. But, hey, they're not really getting attempts. And when they're getting attempts, they're blowing it, and my stars are turning the ball over. There's something that may be wrong. Or, like Todd said, the honeymoon's over. Now the real ballers are coming to play. The real scouting is happening, and someone's not being trusted. So
how much of it
to see what happens in the second game?
How much of this series is going to come down to coaching? Because obviously this is also Redick's first playoff series. Minnesota's been here before. Is coaching going to be a big factor? I know we talked. I thought when Ramon was bringing up the coaching in the Bucks series, I thought he was going to bring up it's Doc Rivers as the head coach of the Bucks. We didn't really talk about coaching in the other series. But how much will coaching impact this one, in your guys' opinion? Obviously, the players are going to be a big deal, but I'm also just thinking, will Redick make the right adjustments based off how this game went?
Well, that's the key. Will you be able to pivot, right?
Yeah.
So this is Ramon so eloquently explained, right? Other guys haven't gotten involved. So what I would say is this on Tuesday night, looking at first 6 minutes of the game and look at the assists that the big two have, and look at the attempts that the other players have, because they've got to force themselves to get those other guys going, because Luka and LeBron can get themselves, they're like an auto starter. They're like an auto starter on a car. Just push a button and they get going. Hey, listen, those other guys are 72 Buicks, man, with 300,000 miles on. You got to oil them up. You got to get them going early. And if they don't get going early, could they go late? Yeah, but it's very doubtful. Because I said, you got Luka and Bron, they can get themselves going. I want to see Reeves. That's his name. I keep forgetting. I don't know why I keep wanting to call Reeves something else. Reeves is your third guy. But again, if he's on the defensive end struggling like he was yesterday, that may be a challenge for him. Yeah. So do you get him out of that high screen and roll? The way you look at it now, if there's a defensive liability, they're putting you in the high screen. It just doesn't matter. So that's going to be the coaching piece there. So you got to get your 2 European players that are out there on the court in the starting 5. You got to get them out of that high screen and roll somehow, so they can't get.
I mean, something's got to change, and I think if anything, I think the biggest thing that I'm looking at is, Vanderbilt probably needs to play more in this series if you want to, not solve, but kind of help with that high screen problem, right? We talked about how good of a defender Vanderbilt is. Dorian Finney-Smith played 33 minutes. He had 3 points, right? You can kind of cut some of those minutes down and give it to Vanderbilt, because I think with the way this game went, it looks like this is going to be somewhat of a defensive series. And when you're the Lakers, that's not what you want, right? You don't want a defensive series.
Wait a minute. Why isn't it what they want? Because at the trade deadline, they became an immaculate defensive team.
I didn't say immaculate. I didn't say immaculate.
I didn't say you. I've heard it from social media sites. Ramon and I both have seen it, and people say, "Hey, they're now a defensive juggernaut because they've got this energy and they're ready to roll and they're fighting for Bron and they're fighting for Luka." At the end of the day, what I said to someone, I said, it's going to be 8 players playing. We're not going 10. We're going to go to 8, and they're going to hunt you. So what are you going to do when they hunt you? That's going to be the big fit there, right? Because the reality is Luka has never been a good defensive player, and he's not now. Reeves has never been a good defensive player, and he's not now. LeBron is 40 years old now.
And let's be honest. I'm just going to cut one quick. LeBron ain't never been a great defensive player. He's been able to jump into passing lanes and use his athleticism, but he's not a fundamentally great defensive player. You got a bad defensive team.
And that's a fair statement, but what makes up for that though, right? And the other team that he's been on was good defensive players, right?
Yep.
So that helps. So what do you do when they hunt your 2 Europeans in the starting lineup? And to your point, Isaiah, you said, hey, what does coach do, right? That's going to be the big ticket.
Yeah.
You watch that first quarter. That's going to tell you a lot in that first quarter.
And the other thing I also want to point out is you look at 3-point shots, right? 15 for 41 for the Lakers, 21 to 42 for Minnesota. Minnesota shot well. And that's another thing. And we kind of talked about it in the Detroit series, right? Naz Reid, he's been consistent. Jaden McDaniels had 25. Randall had 16. The same way the Lakers role players didn't get looks and stuff like that, I don't think that happens again. Same thing with Minnesota. I don't think you get that same production from a Naz Reid, a Jaden McDaniels, and a Julius Randle like that every night. Now, Naz Reid, I'm going to actually say he's going to be consistent because he was last playoff series. But for McDaniels,
he's going to bring it.
For McDaniels and Randle, I'm not. McDaniels is a more on the defensive end. He can do well offensively, but I don't see Randle and McDaniels being that consistent. I am still worried about DiVincenzo, even though he only had 9. But I think offensively, Minnesota's always, their defense is their bread and butter. They're a better defensive team than they are an offensive team. So it's a clash of styles at this moment in time, and Minnesota just happened to be better at both last night. I think offensively, the Lakers got to figure some things out, but I don't see Minnesota doing that well offensively across the board, every single game. Just kind of how like we've been talking about with Detroit and even Indiana a little bit with what they did against Milwaukee.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just to finish up the Lakers, Minnesota, we don't want to Minnesota, but with that point, Minnesota's not going to hit 50% from 3 on Tuesday night. So you got to get it from somewhere else. So let's see what happens, right?
Yep.
So as we pivot on, next series, I want to talk about that Thunder Grizzlies series, right? You've got the greatest shooter of all time in a lot of people's eyes versus Ja Morant and that team of disconnect right now. To be quite honest, that team is a good team, but they've got a lot of mismatched pieces that are going on right now. And in my opinion, I said Oklahoma. I'm sorry. I meant Thunder and Grizzlies. I apologize. Oklahoma City Thunder. So when you're talking about Oklahoma City Thunder, you got to start and finish with the best record in the league. In my opinion, the second best player in the league, and probably the deepest team in the league. So I would say this, to make it short, Thunders and no worse than 5 over the Grizzlies, no matter what Ja Morant does.
Man, it's 63-30 right now in the second quarter. It's a sweep. It's a sweep.
I don't have it on right now.
No, you're fine. I've got it pulled up. It's a sweep. It's a sweep. I'm not going to sit here and play games. When I look at the matchups between 1 and 8 and 2 and 7 on the East and West side, I think there's more chance of an upset on the East side than there is the West side.
Like, I'm going to get that too.
It's not even close in this series. It's just not. And that's not even like me saying the Grizzlies are a bad team. That's just me saying the Thunder are not here to mess around this time around. They're here to win it all. Last year, they were the number 1 seed, and everyone's like, oh, they're young. And even now, you're seeing conversations in the media of the Thunder are they're frauds. They're too young to be champions. They're too young to be. Man, cut all that out. They're here to play. This is the best record in the league, right? This isn't the Atlanta Hawks in 2015. This team's going to be around for a while, and they're going to be a problem regarding any injuries, right? This isn't a fraudulent 60-win team. This team is going to win this round. They're going to win their next round unless, the Clippers or the Nuggets just really play good basketball. Like, this is the Thunder's year for sure, without question. If they play Boston, that's going to be a heck of a series, but this Thunder team's not here to mess around. This is a sweep. There's no other way to put it. This is a sweep. And if they drop a game, gentlemen sweep, whatever. The Thunder are going to win this in 4 games, no matter, in my opinion. They're going to finish it in 4.
Coach?
I think Ramon's we can move on to the next segment.
Right, really, it's really simple. I ain't got to talk about the Thunder. It's the other team.
Okay.
You can't win with Ja. If Ja your best player, you going home first round most of the time, second round at the best. You going home.
Yep.
You can't win with him. He ain't a leader. He can't lead troops. He's an entertainer. If you want to laugh and joke and smile and shoot guns and throw bombs and like, woo, see that dunk, then follow Ja. If you want to win championships, you send him somewhere else and you get you somebody else.
Yeah.
So
good point.
Daryl,
as good as the Thunder are, and the Thunder, they're really, really good. This is more about the issues and problems they have in Memphis.
Yeah.
They need to that grenade that Ja pulls the pin out and throws. The GM needs to throw that damn grenade and blow that team up.
So Daryl, in that when we went through the first 4 series, we kind of went back to the East and the West. So I want to ask, do we want to start with Orlando, Boston, or do we want to go to Miami, Cleveland?
We can go. Let's go Orlando, Boston. I know you have some things you want to say about that, and I'll go and do my piece on that. So, and I'll say this, you got Magic. They've got Paolo Banchero is a up and coming, soon to be great player. Wagner's out. They've had injuries all year. You've got Boston, who's got nursing some injuries, but they still got that talented that starting 5. And I don't see Magic winning more than 1 game here. Maybe a fluky one because someone sits out for Boston, or maybe Brown isn't as healthy as anticipated. But I don't see there's a lot of resistance from the Magic in this series at all. And I say at worst case Boston 4-1.
I've got Boston in 6. I do have Orlando picking up 2 games.
Wow.
This is me openly saying it on the pod. When LeBron retires, this Paulo will be the player that I will go to bat for almost every time, right? This is the player that I'm a crowd the plate and I'm a swing every single time a pitch comes down. I've loved Paulo since Duke. I love me some Paolo Banchero, right? He ain't in a Lakers jersey. That's fine, whatever. I do love Paolo Banchero. This is my guy. I think Paolo has that, we talked about it in one of the episodes, right? Who's got that it factor? Who's got that oomph? You know what I'm saying? I think Paolo has it. And I think the biggest thing right now with Orlando, and you go back to last year against Cleveland, Paolo did his thing. I mean, he was putting up 25, he was putting them up. But if you look who was around him, Suggs couldn't hit. Anthony Black couldn't hit. His supporting cast has to show up. And the only reason that last year's series was not close was because his supporting cast did not show up. If his supporting cast can show up at all in this series, and Paolo puts up 30 or 25 like he did last year against Cleveland, I think they can get a game in Orlando, obviously. And then I think they could maybe sneak one out of Boston. Now, that one's going to be tough. But
you realize Suggs is not playing.
Yeah, but I think
so things are different.
Yeah, I agree. But they've got a lot of depth to them, right? You've got KCP, depth. You got Cole Anthony, you've got it's young depth, but there's a lot of depth there. And they've been in the playoffs again now. This is they're in it again. They played a Cleveland team that's now got the best record in the East. So they're playing in the last 2 years. They're now playing the top 2 teams in the East. So I really like this Orlando team to maybe, I think they're guaranteed to win in Orlando. And I think they could maybe sneak one out in Boston or win both in Orlando, but I don't think that happens. But I like their depth. Their depth really gives me a lot of confidence.
Clearly, you like Orlando and Carroll.
And it's not that I don't like Boston. I'm not a Boston hater like a lot of other people.
It ain't going past 5. It ain't going, as my man Coach Stalin would say, Orlando, Rolando, Boston in 5.
Hey, I gave my case. I gave my case for Orlando today. I really like Orlando, but I agree Boston will win, but I'm going to say in 6.
Coach said he don't even need to speak about that.
Man, I was watching Harlem Nights, right? And they said that boy got a shot in his ass. Man,
hey, good one. Hey,
they ain't got a chance, man. You talking about the guys who just won the NBA championship, right?
Right.
You talking about the guys that got like multiple Olympic champions on their team, right?
Yeah.
You talking about the guy who got snubbed, who should have been on the Olympic team, right? Okay, my bad. You talking about a young coach who's fiery, hungry, and hot. And you talking about the luck of the Irish? Come on, man. Stop, man. They ain't got to go far for vacation. Shit. Right there in Orlando. Disney World.
They going to Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, man. Good point.
I understand you like old boy. I understand that, man. I am, you know what? I ride with my people all the time. You know, if my people playing, I'm going to ride with them, man. You know, no matter what. But, dude, you know good and well. They ain't got a shot, man. The only way they got a shot if old boy Paulo called Pablo Escobar and they do some other stuff to get this game through. Because they ain't got a shot, man.
I'm going to sum it up for you, what Coach is saying. They ain't got a snowball chance in hell.
Hell, man. They have, as my daddy would say, check this, as my daddy would say, man, he rest in peace. You got a better chance of walking through fire with gasoline draws than win this game.
Well,
hey,
on that note,
that's a good pivot. That's a good
on
pivot.
That note, what?
So next pivot, you know, we're talking Rockets and Warriors. You're talking about young and youthful and athletic, right? In the Rockets, you got a coach who's hellfire and brimstone, who called the supposed goat of current a 4-legged dog, female dog, to his face and didn't blink. You're talking about a coach who's tough-minded, who's giving that to his team of athletes and good players that's going to go against the Warriors. The greatest shooter of all time is what everybody says. You've got the Saginaw Strangler and you know, from Michigan State there. Then on top of that, you've got what's crazy about this. You got Jimmy Butler, who's galvanized this franchise this year. This team was dead in the water. They were a boat without any rudder and any gasoline when that trade came in play when Jimmy Butler came to Oakland. Since Jimmy Butler's come to Oakland, not only is Steph playing better, he's shooting better, the team is winning, and all of that is because you got a guy who isn't just going to talk it like the Saginaw Strangler does. He's going to play. He's going to get to the free throw line, and that's why I'm saying this series here, definitely 7 games. And here's a statistic that I know is right. I don't know the exact number. The Warriors went from middle of the pack of free throw attempts per game to number 1 since Jimmy Butler came to that team. I don't know the exact number. They went from middle of the pack to number 1 in free throws attempted. That means not only are they just going out there shooting threes anymore, getting to the basket, drawing fouls, getting easy points. That's made life easier for Steph. That's made Kerr be allowed to put Jonathan Kuminga on the bench and not play him. This guy's going to be somebody's star at another team next year.
Yep.
And this guy's not even playing right now because of Jimmy Butler's presence. That's why he's not playing. But understand, there's a shelf life for Jimmy Butler. After next year, he's going to turn into Jimmy Butler again. So I'll say this. I'll say because of experience and you know what the NBA likes to see, I say Warriors in 7.
I watched the play-in game between the Warriors and the Grizzlies, right? I watched the whole game. I sat there and watched it. And when we got down to the end of that game, I think it was the second half, and I stopped watching the ball. When the Warriors came up the floor, I stopped watching the ball because I was watching the off ball. And I talked about it after the trade. I'm like, if Jimmy Butler's going to bring the ball up and Steph's going to off ball, it's scary. It's scary. And in that game against Memphis, when they did that, Butler brings the ball up. You see Curry on the elbow. He's sitting there. The Saginaw Strangler, as Daryl calls him, comes up, gives him a screen. Curry runs baseline, comes to the wing.
You mean a moving screen? You mean that moving screen that they run all the time?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking. Okay, I want to make sure.
It's opened up this offense though. Curry can off ball as much as he wants now because you have that other guy, and it doesn't solely rely on Curry. That's why I think it's more scarier than it was before, because if they don't go to Curry, you still have to worry about the guy that originally had the ball and Jimmy Butler, and then you've got Brandon. I'm not going to say it. We're going to call him Brandon P. You got Brandon P as well, who's been solid. I want to read you guys off Jimmy Butler's stats the last couple of games, right? 38, 30, 24, 28. And then you've got games where he's only doing 10, 13, and 11, and then you got some 19-point games sprinkled in there. They play off each other really well. If Curry's off one night, Butler's hot. If Butler's off one night, Curry's on fire. And then you have moments like in the play-in where Butler has 38 and Curry has 33. I said it in the wraparound segment, which that video is going up today, where I said, Houston knows Sengun's going to get buckets. Houston knows Dylan Brooke is going to contribute. We know Fred VanVleet's going to contribute. He's a former champion. The biggest question mark for the Houston Rockets is, what will Jalen Green do in this playoff series? It's going to fall on Jalen Green. If Jalen Green has one of those nights where he puts up 12 points, this series is going to be over in 5 games just off experience alone. If Jalen Green shows up to play and the Rockets show up to play, I think Daryl has it right. It's a 7-game series, but I still think Golden State wins no matter what. I think Houston, we're going to see a lot of moments where these young guys, Sengun and Green, but mainly Jalen Green, they're not going to perform. And I think that's going to be their biggest downfall.
Coach?
Hey, man, you guys said just about everything. Just about everything, man. Only thing I can say is that
because the coaching's there on both sides, it's really going to come down to
there on both sides. I look at Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets, as what I call the big homie. And everybody plays better in the hood when the big homie's on your side. And he shows that when he becomes the big homie, it makes everyone okay to reach their ceiling. So that's dangerous. Houston got the toughest coach in basketball.
Yeah, he's and it's not just talk. It's I'm gonna give you an example to your point. Detroit's coach, JB Jr. does a lot of talking. Hey man, Udoka, he's not playing, man. He's about that life. I really believe he's about that life, man. And you see it in that team. He sits there, he stands there, just like he said to Curry the other night. Boy, stay out of my face. He's not afraid of who you are and what you've done in the league. Think about this. He's gone at the top 2 players in the last 15 years in the NBA, LeBron and Curry. Didn't back down and said, watch me now. It wouldn't surprise me if they win, but I would think I'm leaning towards Golden State, but it wouldn't shock me if Houston wins.
He was tough as a player.
Yeah.
He's tough as a coach. He's knowledgeable. And his players like him.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's a winning process, right?
You know what else he does too, Ramon? He doesn't go and whine saying they're out to get us and that type of thing. He keeps all in house as a real leader should. Don't worry about what the outside noise says. It doesn't matter. Worry about what we do in here. And if we do that part and we expand and we maximize our opportunities, I'll take what we got.
So we got
you know when I knew he was tough. It's probably nice. You laughing because you know I'm about to say it wasn't sports related.
But hey, that's
when
my
he had that
thing.
when he had that affair.
no.
Listen what I'm gonna say. He didn't come on TV talking about, I made a mistake and I'm so sorry and I'm blah blah blah. He was like, yeah, man. Basically, he was like, I did it. My bad.
Move on.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
He didn't come in. He didn't come in with the violin and the sob story and the world, please forgive me and take me back. He manned up, basically was like, I made a mistake. Cool. Give me my punishment. And I'm gonna play this out.
Yep.
And that's what type of guy he is. The only issue, if he was playing against anybody else, I would be like, man, I'm going with Houston. But Jimmy Butler, when he's being the big homie, he's a problem.
Yeah. He's a problem for everybody.
So we've got a little under 6 minutes in this segment, so we can make it happen. We're gonna quickly hit on Miami and Cleveland, and I guess I'll start off since I'm already kind of discussing it. I don't know how to feel, right? I really like how Harrow and Bam have been playing. I like the depth on Miami, but I mean, I've already said I really don't buy Cleveland, but I'm not gonna sit here and be some ESPN guy and be like, oh, Miami's gonna shock. No, Cleveland's gonna win. Cleveland's gonna win, whether that's in 5 games or 6 games. I'm gonna go right now. I'm gonna say 5. I don't think Miami I don't think they have a guy, right? And I think also Cleveland starting 5 is just eons better than Miami. They've got the bench. Cleveland's got all the right pieces on this team to beat Miami without question. And then Donovan Mitchell, I mean, he's their number 1 option. I don't know if Miami has the number 1 option, right? So that's where I'm going with it. I'm gonna quickly wrap it up with Cleveland in 5.
I'll say this. I'll say Cleveland in 5 or maybe even 6, but it's going to be a tough 5-game or 6-game series because what's happened is with Miami getting that confidence and during the end of the season and then in the play-in, and they got a guy that came off the bench. They call him back when he was in Sacramento. They called him off night. Davion Mitchell. That's who's going to be finding those guards for Cleveland. Davion Mitchell, just remember that name.
Yep.
Davion Mitchell, not only when he was just a defensive player when he's in Sacramento, he now has a little bit of offensive game to him, right? I'm not saying he's the next, start of Isaiah Thomas. What I'm saying is he's going to offer some resistance to those Cleveland backcourt players, and it's going to be a real tough series. Yeah, Miami may win 4 out of 5, but Cleveland may win 4 out of 5, but they're going to know they were in a dogfight. That's what I'll say.
Ramon?
I'm going with Cleveland because I'm biased.
Okay.
I let people know I'm always biased. Darius Garland, daddy's from Gary, Indiana. Grew up around the corner from my family. Went to school with some of my kinfolk. I grew up watching this daddy play, so I'm definitely going to root for the son. Anybody got some ties with Gary, Indiana, GI, the 219, I'm going to be biased for. Let's go Cleveland.
Let's go Cleveland. The Bears are going to Gary, Indiana.
Hey,
we'll see.
Football's next.
They need to.
Football's next. We'll see what happens. So that's going to wrap up the NBA segment. We've got NFL coming up next. We're going to be doing a mock draft. We're either going to be doing a mock draft or we're all going to do our mock drafts. We're going to discuss that here before we go on for the next segment, but it's going to be good. We're talking Ramon's favorite player of all time, Shedeur Sanders. I know he's ready. So when we come back,
when we
come back, we're going to be talking some NFL draft. We'll see you guys in a moment.